2 years ago, my wife and I left the UK behind and bought this abandoned townhouse in the southwest of France. It was in a sorry state when we first walked through the doors. We could see the potential hiding underneath. We've spent every day since slowly coaxing it back to life. We've still got a long way to go, but in this video, we're answering the common questions we get and passing on everything we've learned. What it's really like to buy a historic French property, what everyday life in France is actually like, and how you can pull off something similar yourselves. Hello and welcome to our very first Q&A video. It seems very bizarre doing. I don't like doing this, but we get a lot of questions about random stuff, and we thought sum up everything that we've got so far through Instagram and YouTube and kind of answer it all in one go. So I guess we'll start with the house.
And I guess finding a home in France.
Yeah, so I think the first question that we get a lot is, how hard was it to find a house like ours? And how many properties did you visit before deciding on this one?
I can take that one first. I think it's not very hard in France to find historic properties to restore and to renovate. There's quite a lot. It all really depends what you're looking for. And I think my advice to anyone, because I get loads of these questions on Instagram, a lot of people want to move and are wondering like, is the Chartreuse like a gem, or do you have loads like this?
No, there's loads.
There's loads, but the style of the house will really depend on the region. So obviously if you want a Chartreuse, you might want to stay in the border region. You know, it'll be very different from what you have like in Alsace or in the southeast. So it's not hard to find. You just need to find the right region for your style. And then you need to be willing to do some renovation work, because most of these historic properties, if they are affordable, usually it means they need to be renovated quite extensively.
Yeah.
But for us, that was the plan. So we started looking for homes mainly in the Bordeaux center initially. And I think we saw maybe 6 or 7 before we saw this one.
Yeah.
So it was not a huge amount.
With that,
to the
we can
financials.
move on to the financials of the house, which is something we get asked a lot. So how much did the actual house cost? Just to give you context, we bought in
Late 2023.
Late 2023, and so the house prices were increased quite dramatically. And so even though the house was in a relatively bad state, it was what I would consider relatively expensive for France. And so I think there's this misconception that you see online that you can buy really, really cheap properties in France. And that is true, but it is very, very centered on like where you want to buy. So I can buy basically a castle in the, like,
for the same price
for
of
the
this
same
house.
price as this house in like basically areas that nobody wants to live in, which are very isolated. But if you want to buy in a metropolitan area, the prices then start to become relatively equivalent with like other European cities, not Europe, UK standards, because it's way, way below UK. So the house price that we bought this place for was 450,000. It was initially listed as 530,000. But it was actually initially on the market at 710,000, which was a nuts price. That was crazy. That was absolutely insane. So it went from 710 to 530. We made an initial offer at 390, which I think was actually the correct price. But because we fell in love with the house, we kind of didn't want to lose it. We overpaid, to be honest, but I think we love the house. So I think it's all relative. Like we overpaid by probably about 30K. But I don't think it was...
Yeah, and also our objective was not to make a profit. Like we bought this house for it to be our main residence, so it's to be a home. So at some point, you know, we realized like we really like it, we feel really good here. So it was worth spending the extra bit. But I think that's a good lesson, because people don't really realize when they look at the French market is that you can actually negotiate quite a lot, especially on these old properties.
For sure.
So usually the price you'll see listed is a maximum price. In France, there is a law that if you are selling at a price and you get an offer at that price, you have to accept. which I think is not necessarily the case in the UK.
No, you can bid over the price. So.
Yeah, so usually sellers in France tend to list at quite high prices just to make sure they get the best offer.
Regarding the house, who was the first to say this is the one? Romy, I think, for sure.
Yeah, for me, I think I saw it from the end of the street. And funny enough, when Hugo found the the listing, and I was not super keen based on the pictures. I was having a really hard time visualizing what it would look like. But he convinced me to call, and we set up an appointment. And I think when I saw it from the corner of the street, I realized I really liked it. I liked the area. I thought it looked so pretty with this old rusty gate and the steps to the front door. And the front door obviously was just so stunning, even back
when it was like in a terrible
it
state.
was not, it needed restoration, but I could really see the potential. And what I really liked from this house when we walked in, is that it's a very traditional house in terms of layout. It has a central hallway, a drawing room, like a dining room. Everything was very standard, and I thought what made it so easy to read and to also visualize the potential, because we didn't want to change much. We wanted to keep the old, charm as much as possible, and that house really made it easy because it was so traditionally, classically set up, that I just knew that we need to sort out obviously the mold and the leaks and change the floors and all these kind of things, but it was very easy to visualize with the space where it could look like. So I was really keen, I think.
Yeah, I think I was a little bit more hesitant at the time because of the upstairs. I found it was a bit too low ceiling height, and so with the price that it was on at the time, I thought it was too expensive, because we initially wanted to lower the ceiling. Found out we couldn't actually do because of some beams in the way or something like that. I can't remember exactly why we couldn't do that, but I initially thought it was too expensive and the upstairs was not big enough. So it took a little bit more convincing to come round, but I think after we did a second visit, I was pretty convinced, and we could kind of project what we wanted to do to the space pretty easily. Is this your forever home or for now home? Good question.
I think it's our for now home, but probably for a long time.
Yeah.
We really love it. We still have loads of work to do, but we love the area. We love Bordeaux. We have quite a good network of friends and family here now, so this is like a really good house. But I think realistically we're definitely more countryside people at heart, I think. So the dream is definitely to have a bit more land, and also I think something we didn't really anticipate as much when we started this whole adventure is that we obviously clearly enjoy renovating homes, and so I think it's going to be an interesting moment when this house is finished. Hopefully we'll rest up a little bit, enjoy the fruit of our labor, but I could definitely see us needing a new project and maybe something even more historical or even older.
Yeah, I think the end goal obviously is to have, as you say, just a bigger property that we would be able to live off, because right now, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but fortunately, the house is just the right size for us and maybe a few more. In the future, we'd like to have a property which we theoretically could make into a business. So that would mean a bigger house, which would maybe have more land, could have some more gardens for Remy to do. So that is the dream, but we will see how
we'll take our time. And
moving on. So we will talk a little bit about who we are and how we met, basically.
I am actually French. I grew up in Dordogne. I think quite a few of our subscribers might know this area of France. It's a really beautiful part of France, about 2 hours away from Bordeaux, lots of castles, beautiful countryside. And I think now it's been nicknamed by all the British expat Dordogneshire.
Dordogneshire, wow. Okay,
because there's lots of British people, but we love it. So I'm fully French, family is French, and I moved to the UK in 2014 for my studies to do a year of Erasmus. I was studying literature, and so I moved to London, where I basically met Hugo, who is British.
Yes, I am British, yes.
And I met you basically a month after I moved to London.
So it's been a long time. It's been 11 years now.
12 years.
12 years, wow. 12 years. So we started dating at university.
And we got married last year.
Last year, and we had some of the celebrations at the house.
Which was very nice.
And we also... I proposed to Remy in the house, which was maybe a story we'll get onto later. And then, so a lot of questions we get asked about is, why did you move to France? And maybe I can take that one, is that we were living in London for many, many years. We love London. London is an amazing place. The city is awesome, but it is a very large and very busy and also very expensive place to live. Around about the COVID years in 2020, well, I can't remember.
Just at the beginning of COVID, I think.
Yeah, 2020, we decided to move out into the countryside to Devon. Very beautiful part of the world. It is very green, rolling countryside, etc. And we rented a little, quite a large cottage out there in the countryside.
Which was a really beautiful place.
It's a very beautiful place.
So we decided that it was time at some point to think about, we didn't want to rent out forever. And so we wanted to buy some place, but obviously we realized maybe Devon was not a forever home, mainly because we don't have many connections to this place.
We were thinking about experimenting with France because obviously Romy is French. And she has family in Bordeaux, so we decided that we wanted to try out life in France because if the weather was a little bit better, and also we wanted to go back to a smaller city. Does Hugo speak French, and was it difficult to learn? Good question. I do speak French. You might have heard my terrible French in some of the videos, especially when talking to Fred, our lovely neighbor. Was it difficult to learn? I think, I'm still learning, and honestly, it's still a bit of a challenge to communicate on a day-to-day life, I think, because I don't personally work in French, so I work remotely for a English company, so I spend most of my days talking English. The chances that I speak French are with French friends, so whilst I do hold a decent...
You're very good now.
Decent level of French relatively. I still need to practice daily, and that's why we are super excited by the sponsor of today's video, which is French Channel, which is an amazingly fun way for me to actually keep up to date with my French learning. It is a platform that has access to a wide range of documentaries, cinema films, series in French, all with English subtitles. And for us, it's been really, really great because we've been able to find
classics from my childhood, films that I really love, that I think really represent, French culture, French humor mainly. We try to watch a lot of funny movies because I think humor is really good to help you learn the language.
And weirdly, a lot of the stuff that you recommended isn't actually available on a lot of the big streaming services, and French Channel actually has all of them, which is amazing. Yeah. So Le Grand Vadrouille,
La Grande Vadrouille,
The Visitor, these are classic French films. And something that we've been really enjoying is the Discover France section of France Channel, and that's where it has all the documentaries, and specifically the documentary series by Stéphane Bern.
I love, so this is called Secret d'Histoire, so if you're very interested in French history or French castles or French royalty or all that, so this is I call him the Monty Don of French history. His name is Stéphane Bern. He has this series of documentary, and I really like them. And they're very tough to watch. You might find a few on YouTube, but French Channel has them all.
So if you're interested in getting French Channel and boosting your French game, you can scan the QR code on the screen now, or visit the link in the description and use our code Chartreuse30 for 30% off your first year. Thank you very much for French Channel for sponsoring this video and supporting creators like us. How do we find life in France?
I guess you should answer that.
Yeah, so I think life in France is really great. Life in France is generally you have a very high quality of life in France. I think the level of access you get to quality food, quality experiences is very, very good here. And also nature is very good. The countryside is very varied, the buildings are very beautiful, and also the healthcare and all the stuff is extremely good. I think coming from the UK, which has the NHS, which is a little bit under strain at the moment, the healthcare system in France is kind of night and day, to be honest. It's really, really good in France, I would say. And so the quality of everything is very, very good, and the quality of life is extremely good. I think I would say that is a real negative that we have been impacted about in France is just the level of bureaucracy and length of time it takes to get anything governmental-wise done. is extremely long and very, very complicated and very, very antiquated. It's quite well known, I would say. Most people know that when you're moving to France, you're going to be dealing with level of bureaucracy. And I would say it's worth the headache moving to France with the bureaucracy headache.
Yeah.
But I would say you just got to be aware of it. For people who are watching and dreaming of doing the same thing, what neighborhoods or areas around Bordeaux would you recommend for a family looking for somewhere affordable and safe? It's a good question.
Yeah, I would say Bordeaux is obviously very safe as a city, so anywhere in Bordeaux I think is there's loads of different beautiful neighborhoods. I really like obviously the neighborhood of Les Chartrons. We did a few videos there. Saint-Genès is lovely.
Very nice.
Nansouty, and all the little towns around Bordeaux can be really lovely.
Yeah.
And then you've got different, if you want to be more in the countryside, but maybe like 30 minutes drive from Bordeaux, the Entre-deux-Mers region is very nice, beautiful, and you might have bigger properties available. The Saint-Émilion region is obviously great, and if you want to go even further, obviously I would highly recommend Dordogne.
Okay, so on to the actual renovation. When configuring and changing the layout of your home, did you employ the services of an architect or did you use a program? Do you use a general contractor to do the work, or do you prefer doing most of the work yourself? When configuring the layout of the property, we just did everything ourselves. We did not look at getting an architect because honestly, the changes that we wanted to make to the interior of the house weren't drastic. The only thing that we did, which was really drastic, was we opened up the space here. So there was a load-bearing wall and we put a beam in here. And then I guess also to talk about using contractors versus doing stuff ourselves. We did use contractors to start with a lot of the major work, such as the plumbing, the electricity, the masonry. So stuff that we couldn't do ourselves while we were living off-site, and also was just too complicated, and also would require us to have like certification for insurance reasons in France. But in general, I would say we prefer to do the stuff ourselves where possible, but if there is areas that we are not comfortable with or would take longer, we get other tradesmen to do it.
Now we're in a quite comfortable position where we're able to obviously live very comfortably in the house, so we don't really care if projects take a bit longer to complete, and that's why we prefer to do it ourselves, obviously cheaper, and we learn in the process. I think when we just bought the house, it was very different because we had a flat somewhere else that we had to rent out. So we wanted the first phase to get the house livable, go as quick as possible. And so that's why we had quite a few contractors at the beginning, just doing the bigger projects, so we could move in as fast as possible. And as soon as we moved in, basically we did everything ourselves.
Yes, yeah. What is your background as it applies to renovation skills? And then I guess twinned with this, is renovating/home improvements a family tradition? And how did you learn all the different skills you have? So all kind of bundled into the same thing there. So as renovation goes, we had one prior experience to this, which was renovating a flat in London, which was all done by complete builders, and we didn't have much to do with the actual process.
No, I think at the time the most extensive renovation work we did in that flat was putting up the shelves.
Yeah.
So we really didn't do as much.
Extreme novices when it came to renovations.
Yeah, it's also not a family tradition. Our parents, respectfully, on both sides, don't really do any DIY. So,
and answering the question about where do we learn all the skills from, it's literally just self-learning through YouTube and reading online. It's very possible to do all of these things yourself without any experience. It just takes a lot longer.
And you need to plan for errors.
Yeah, you need to plan for errors. It's a lot longer. But the thing I would say that we have learned, which I think makes everything easier to do all the stuff yourself, is that everything can be redone very easily. So whilst I think a lot of people who are novice DIYers or renovators, I don't know if that's a word, they get very worried that if they do something wrong, they're not going to be able to reverse it and it's going to ruin the whole thing. And I think what we've learned is that actually it's the opposite. Most of the stuff is very easy to rip out and redo. And if worst comes to worst, if you lay a tile wrong, or you lay something wrong, you can always just rip it up and redo it again.
It will be frustrating.
It's frustrating.
Expensive sometimes,
but you can always redo it. And it's probably even if you redo it, it's going to be cheaper than getting someone else to do it.
Yeah, because I think we had a question about
Yeah.
how much does it cost to actually get professionals to do renovation in France, and just touching back on as well on the property prices, because I do get this question a lot on Instagram. I think when people see these cheap old homes in France, they assume that it's going to be pretty cheap as well to renovate. And I would say in France, obviously, labor is very expensive. And so you really have to plan for it. And so my advice is that if you're thinking of renovating in France and you want professionals to do it, you have to plan between 1,000 to 1,500 euros per square meters. That's how much usually it costs to actually restore a home. So obviously, if you have a really big place, like in the countryside, even if it costs like 200k to buy, it could really add up. And often actually in these old places, it costs a lot more to renovate than to actually buy the property in the first place.
100%. Right, so we're moving on to the work, finances and time section. A good question that we get asked all the time is, what do you do for a living? Do you have jobs other than YouTube? And what are your backgrounds professionally and personally? Do you want to answer this yet? Or we can do both answer this, yes.
Yes, well, I can start. So we both work.
We both work,
say it. So obviously this is not a full-time gig for now. I
also do work in tech as well. I am a developer for a US company. I was full-time until the middle of last year. And then I went part-time so we could do some focus on some of the editing on the YouTube stuff. And then recently I quit.
Very recently.
Like
this week.
This week, yeah. This week I quit to focus on other projects, which I will share with you guys when we have the time right. And hopefully that should give us more time as well to focus on a little bit more of the renovation and YouTube content. We unfortunately cannot focus on YouTube full time because it doesn't pay us enough money right now to be able to do that full time. It would be great if we could, although it's just unfortunately the nature of the way that we publish videos with the renovation. We don't publish enough videos, and we don't have enough ad revenue or sponsor revenue to be able to do it full time. But maybe in the future it would theoretically be something that we could do. How do you manage your time between work and the renovation? This is a good question that we get asked a lot.
Not very well.
Not very well. Yeah, it's tricky, and I think it's part of the reason that I went part-time last year is it was a lot of
and part
work.
of the reasons you're going full-time now.
It's part of the reason that we're going full-time as well, is it's a lot of work to do the renovation, the YouTube, and work full-time. Basically had no free time because we were doing renovation work in free time, and then when we had free time from the renovation work we were doing editing, and then when we weren't doing editing, we would be doing renovation work. So
it was this constant cycle. And to be honest, we got a bit tired recently. It was just getting a lot. But I think now, hopefully, with you having a bit more time, we should be able to find a more
better rhythm,
sustainable approach, because it's been intense, but also quite very interesting, and we're very grateful to be able to do that and share with you all, the journey. But it's true, like we've been a bit heads down.
Yeah, for sure. And I think just to say also, it definitely does make it a little bit more worthwhile when you see some comments on the YouTube videos and stuff like that. Loads of the comments on the YouTube being like very supportive and encouraging. So we do read all of the comments and we do really appreciate it. So definitely is like a labor of love, but we do really appreciate making it, and we do have fun making it. It's just a lot of work, which is a good segue to go on to the next section, which is about like the YouTube and content creation. So whose idea was the YouTube journey, and was there any hesitation? I think it was my idea originally. We did think about just doing Instagram as well.
Yeah, I started with Instagram early on, then got a bit discouraged because just the renovation was just too full on.
Yeah, I think we initially wanted to document the house renovation in some kind of way. And we were going through a very intense period with the house. We were trying to finish it just before we moved in. So Romy was finishing the floors here, we were doing the corridor, we were doing all this stuff, and it was intense. So we just didn't have enough time to like basically take photos or document the process. And we finished that period, and we were kind of looking back on it and thinking we actually didn't really document enough. So we didn't have a lot of memories of how it happened. So the YouTube stuff kind of came from like a little bit of that desire to kind of make sure that we kept on documenting stuff and make sure that for us we had like recollections of like how things developed, because it's very easy when you're doing renovation to basically kind of feel like you haven't made any progress. And making the videos and the content gives you some sense of, wow, looking back on it and thinking, wow, we actually have made a ton of progress. How much time does it take to produce a video? A long time. It takes a long time. And so we always get comments about people being like, oh yeah, we really like your videos, but we would love you to post like more often. And the sad truth of the matter is, I honestly don't understand how people are doing these like weekly posting schedules, or like Dan, who has that amazing Chateau channel, which I can't remember the name of for the life of me. He does like almost daily videos, and that is super impressive to me, because for us it takes us maybe, we've got it down a little bit better now, but it takes us at least 4
Well, it's mainly you editing. You're the one editing.
Yeah.
And it's 3 to 4 days usually.
3 to 4 days.
Full time.
Days.
Yeah.
Full days. It's like, so I'm counting that as like, you know, full, you know, maybe 8 hours solid work. I think the schedule is, we have roughly 1 week on, 1 week off. And so we have 1 week of renovation, and then we have 1 week of editing.
Which is not really a week off.
It's not really a week off. So that's why, unfortunately, we haven't made that much progress in the house, because we only do 1 week progresses.
Yeah.
So that's why it's slow, unfortunately. Where does your passion for flowers, textiles, antiques, food, fine carpentry, music originate from?
It makes us sound very cultured.
It makes us sound very cultured, but not. The lifestyle ambition doesn't just surface one day. It's curated. It evolves for one time and lives with it. Wow, very, very
beautiful question.
Beautiful question. Yeah, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I can start, I think, obviously with flowers and gardening. For me, I think it started when Hugh got me for my birthday a flower arranging workshop in London, and I got hooked. Having all these flowers displayed on the table and having fun, and that's why I started to think, how can I grow as many flowers as possible? Because obviously being in London, buying flowers can be quite expensive. And so that was just before we moved to Devon. And when we moved to Devon, I decided I wanted to learn gardening. So starting growing, it was really a dream come true. And since then, I think, I really want to make sure that wherever we live, we have some of that into weaved into the project. And so I think that's where it comes from, for me at least.
Yeah, we're both relatively creative people, and I think it's just, you have that mindset of like just figuring out or trying to find stuff where you can curate and create stuff, and that kind of translates into whether that's floristry, whether that's like woodworking, whether that's whatever, you know, with the renovation. Do you have any hobbies? And then a similar vibe is, what are each of your passions outside of renovating your home?
We don't have any hobbies.
No hobbies.
All we do. No, well, obviously I think hobbies for me is definitely gardening, so it's lucky that I can use it for this project.
It's fair, it's relatively cliche, but we have a lot of hobbies around like stuff which is quite adjacent to the house, where we like, you know, visiting, you know, houses and gardens, etc. We appreciate architectural stuff like history, things like that. And then, we've tried to transform a lot of the hobbies that we did have, which is more of the creative stuff, into the renovation. So the seamstressing,
I used to really like sewing, embroidering.
Mm-hmm.
I had a big phase of doing calligraphy as well. And so I think the idea with this house is that we can use all these different skills.
Creative skills to like make it our hobby, like you know, our day-to-day stuff. So
it's quite fulfilling.
No hobbies outside of renovation.
We're very boring people.
Okay, final section is on the most important section, which is Phoebe, our cat.
Got loads of questions about Phoebe.
She just came in literally when it's our section. So first question is, how old is Phoebe and what is her breed?
She is almost 6 years old and she's a ragdoll, but she is not your typical ragdoll, because if you just Google ragdolls, Google will tell you that they are meant to be really laid back and really cuddly and
She's not
really passive, and she's really not that. She has a very, very strong personality. She knows what she's worth.
We're her slaves, essentially.
Yeah, but we're okay with that.
Yeah. Does she like other cats? No, she hates other cats.
She hates other cats. She hates most people, to be honest. I mean, that's the big tragedy, is that everyone wants to cuddle her and touch her, and she doesn't want that at all.
No, she's very particular.
Yeah.
She only will let you touch her if she wants. Then Marianne asked, is Phoebe the most beautiful cat in Bordeaux? Yes, she is.
She is.
Yes, she
Objectively,
is.
she is. Maybe the most beautiful cat in France. But
Let's see if I can get her. Phoebe! Whee!
you can go on the table for once. You're not allowed.
There you go.
Phoebe, are you happy to be on this video?
Oh, yes, she is. But I think that is going to be the end of the Q&A. We don't have any more Q&A. Well, we probably did, but this video has gone on for so long that
We hope it was not too boring.
I'm going to have to do some cutting and stuff like that. But yeah, we want to sign off, just say thanks for watching, keeping up to date with the house. We will be continuing on with the attic stuff and also some projects down in the garden.
Yeah.
So follow along for that. And yeah, hopefully see you in the next video.
Thank you so much.
Bye.